What's going on, everybody? Here we are, and this is the May 11th, 2025 episode of the Boxing Source podcast. And I have my special guest here with us, he has been busy here as the CEO of Fighters First Management, a graduate of Texas A&M University Corpus Christi, who served as an agent for the NBA Players Association and has worked with multiple fighters over the years. He is also the creator of Protect Yourself at All Times and has a book called Protect Yourself at All Times, plus a guide for young entrepreneurs. I'm thankful to have brother Adrian Clark with me, man. What's going on?
My man. Thank you for the warm intro, man. But also good seeing you. Even though, as we talked about, I see you in the most random places, but it's always good to see you, man.
Yeah, man. I mean, I be at these different spots, man, when it comes to boxing. So, hey, all of a sudden you might see me, man. I might come up like magic. I don't know what it is, man. You feel me?
All
But,
good.
yeah, but good to chop it up with you, man. I know you've been having big things going down. As I mentioned there, you're the CEO of Fighters First Management.
Right.
And in the previous week, you had some big news there in the city of Atlanta, as you pretty much had a re-signing there, one of your fighters, and also had a couple of other fighters that you put on for Fighters First Management. So go over that there real quick.
I mean, it's been 3 years, man. We came together to start Fighters First 3 years ago, and it went by so fast. And those were our first three, actually four. Shariah Moreyu, who she just had her baby girl. Congrats to Shariah and Emma Williams. But Shariah, Brian Norman Jr., Justin Paulo, and Justin Figueroa were our first four to sign with Fighters First 3 years ago. So all the contracts came to an end, and of course, we were honored to have Brian and both Justins re-sign with the company. And Shariah, whenever she's ready to come back, she knows she has a home with Fighters First. But it was good having three of the four back in Atlanta to re-up and us do some big things moving forward. Everybody's career 3 years later is a lot different than what it was 3 years ago. Brian Norman is a world champion 3 years ago. You can argue that not many people knew who he was. Now, he's fighting in Japan in a couple of weeks. Justin Paul, though, who honestly I believe is next in line to either have a title shot or to be a world champion. But 3 years
Mhm.
ago, he was trying to figure out if he could get a fight. And then Justin Figueroa, nobody knew who he was 3 years ago, and 3 years later, he's 12 or 13 fights in. So, we've done a good job with moving our guys, man. So extremely proud of how everybody's moving.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, we got Justin Paulo here. Got an upcoming fight on June 7th. There, that's going to be in San Antonio, Texas. So
Right.
definitely looking forward to that there. And of course, there with Brian Norman Jr. Having this fight here with Jin Sasaki to defend that WBO welterweight championship. And we're looking for just in just in time there in
Yeah.
Figueroa. You know what I mean? So we got that coming up as well. And like you were saying there in the presser, you said it was like an amazing journey. Building the program there with Fighters First and the fighters there, and it's been a great experience over the 3 years, like you were talking about.
Yeah, man. I love building companies. I love building things, whether it's, you're building a book from scratch or you're building a company or doing a project. Starting from scratch is something that I like to do. And um, this challenge that it's been to build up Fighters First and hire Jolene and I'm a control freak, so I'm used to just doing everything myself. When there was
Hmm.
AC Sports Management, it was just me
Yeah.
representing everyone and doing everything. But now, having someone like Jolene to take care of things that honestly sometimes I know nothing about, but just my
Hmm.
trust for her and her reputation precedes her. So it's been a journey, a lot of ups and downs, really learning what it's like to run someone else's company or build someone else's company up has been new to me, but I've enjoyed the journey, man, and I look forward to the next 3 years and so on from there.
Yeah, shout out to Salim Mazone there, of course, president of Fighters First Management there. That was also part of that event that happened in Atlanta. I got my guy Gritty there, you know what I'm saying? Of course, repping Detroit there. What up, though? You
What's
know what I'm
good, bro?
saying? And with those three fighters there, you talk about there with Brian Norman Jr., of course, being the WBO champion and had his defense there, over in Las Vegas a few months back. Had a great performance there. Ended up with a stoppage victory there on that, and now he's on his way to Japan and making his name over in Japan there to defend the title there against Jin Sasaki. So talk about that experience as far as like having that locked down for Brian Norman Jr.
It was good for B to get back healthy, man. To get back to as close as a 100% that's possible with his hands. Getting surgery,
Mm-hmm.
and then having a setback. It sucks to have those, but we're just thankful that he's back to 100%, and his trajectory is going to take off. It's going to be interesting going over to Japan. I think it's a good experience, and a good challenge for him to go that
Mm-hmm.
on the phone.
Yeah.
Be a good experience for him to go over to Japan and get a good win, whether it's a stoppage or a good decision, either one, which I think is going to be a stoppage. Sasaki's a good fighter. He's going to come forward and he's going to be there for Brian um, to either take out or take apart. So I'm excited for him, man, and not looking because I know the question's coming up, but trying not to look too forward from this fight, but just have him do what he needs to do on June the 19th. Come back to the States, man, and we continue moving from there. But I'm extremely proud of how he's grown as not just a champion, not just a fighter, but as a 24-year-old man.
Yeah, yeah, no doubt. Of course, he has his father and trainer there, Brian Norman Sr. As you
Mhm.
posted recently, he had his birthday the other day too. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
he's definitely been doing this thing here as far as like building up his son to become the fighter that he is right now, and representing as the WBO welterweight champion. You know what I mean?
Couldn't have done this without Brian Norman Sr., man. And I talked about this at the press conference. I'm a dad now, so being a father, having a stranger come in and to pretty much take what you built and get it to another level, that takes a lot of trust, and you have to trust fast because you only have so long to get to know this person before you either choose to make a decision to go with them or not. So I'm just thankful for Senior and his trust for me and Jolene, and it's been good so far, man. And again, I just look forward to the future with those guys.
Yeah, gotcha. Now, before we go back to more of your fighters, that you mentioned a thing there as far as like having a family there and being a father, and we kind of like talked in the past about how your son has been coming up and growing up and things like that, but also as being a manager, you've also had these episodes there as far as like management and teaching the people like what goes on as far as like managing fighters or sports athletes there.
Yeah,
And you've had a number of those episodes with your son, so he's been growing up real fast, man. So how
yeah.
has that journey been?
Oh man, that's my life now, man. That's my world. I don't really like to travel much. I used to live out of a suitcase, man. I used to love just being gone, and I would be gone for days or weeks at a time, and living out of a hotel in a bag and on another flight, or in another country. But now, I want to just spend all my time with my son. So if I don't have to be there, or if I don't have to go, or Jolene can go, I'm thankful for that. But I just rather spend my time with my son. So it's cool to have him a part of the skits and just a part of the business. He's only been to one boxing match, I think, when Ryan Garcia fought Oscar Duarte. But he's not going to be a fighter. Hopefully, he follows in his dad's footsteps and does athlete representation. Maybe goes to law school, but for right now, he's in love with football. So we'll see if he's going
Mm,
to choose the athlete route. But I'm just thankful to be his dad, man, and just loving the journey, loving every day with him, and seeing him grow and create his own little personality. And I'm excited, man. I'm happy.
word. I mean, he's going to football realm. Like at first, we had the thing with the baseball thing going on, but now it looks like he's taking up
I mean,
football.
he still can. We swung the bat today.
Okay.
I just try to keep him sharp at that because you just never know how it's going to turn or what he's going to choose. So long as his hand and eye coordination is there, and if he can make a team or earn a spot, I'm just going to be there in support of him, whether it's football, basketball, or baseball, or whatever he chooses to do. I'm just going to be in support of him. As long as he does something,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to be there for support.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. And you talk about the thing there with traveling, and I had like a position where it would like require travel, lots of travel. So you would be in a hotel pretty much like for most of the week, and
Yeah.
then you'll only be home for like 2 or 3 days, and that's about it. And then you go right back out. You feel me?
Yeah, no,
So
no. Those
that
days,
definitely takes a lot.
yeah, no, those days are over with for me, man. I'll be at home unless it's just I have to be there. I'll be at home with the little one, man, and that's just life.
Where you talk about being there in law school and how that kind of like directed what you've been doing here, for your career. And we talked about you writing a book and showing like how things work as like an agent, and being able to see what's going on with the contracts and all of the little stipulations that go on with that, and how, as you say, you want to protect your fighter there in this particular sense. So like you talk about there, like in one of your books there, as far as like how a fighter could earn a certain amount of money, for a fight. But then when it comes down to it, when it comes to the management fees or the promoters fees and the training and everything like that, that takes off like at least a good 50, maybe 60%. And we ain't even talking about taxes. You feel me?
Yeah.
So like, how is it to kind of like show a number of fighters that you've been, being working with along the way, how, these contracts work and how they could see where they don't get necessarily, either sidetracked, or they'll be able to get as much as they really need here, instead of being able to pay off a lot of what their purse was.
Well, I mean, you have to help them understand that it's a business first. People talk about the sport of boxing, but that's typically fans, people that are on the outside. When you're on the inside of this thing, especially as a fighter, you have to see this thing as a business first and a sport in a secondary sense.
Hmm.
So, Brian is seeing it now, and Justin's going to see it sooner than later. Otto Wallen saw it with Anthony Joshua and maybe some fights before that. But it's not about what you sign for; it's about what you keep. You can sign for $1 million, but it's not what you're going to keep, because you still have
Hmm.
overhead. As you said, you have to pay your manager, you have to pay your trainer, you have to pay your cut man. If you're not fighting under the promotional arm that you're signed with, and you're going somewhere else to fight, or as we call it, crossing the street, there's a fee on top of that. And fans don't care. And from my standpoint, I don't care that fans don't care. I don't represent fans. I don't work for fans. I work for the fighters. So the fighters have to understand my positioning or Jolene's positioning when we're
Hmm.
negotiating on their behalf, or the advice that we're giving them. It's from a standpoint of, hey, you may be signing for 1 million. That's what we negotiated you to make $1 million. But after the deductions, and again, like you said, not even mentioning taxes, $1 million don't look like $1 million after
Hmm.
it's all said and done. So that's why it's important to have adequate representation, and that's why the negotiation game is really serious, and I take it serious. And that's something that Eddie Hearn and other promoters are going to have to learn when dealing with fighters first. We're not here to make things difficult, not all the time, but we're here to get the best deal and the most money for our client, because we understand that there are things that they have to pay for. So the more money that we get them, the better for everyone that's involved. So yeah, it's long as you understand, it's a business first. From the fighter standpoint, it's a business first. Handle business first, and everything else takes care of itself.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. And I'm glad like you kind of mentioned that in reference to how things kind of work when it comes to your fighter, and what that you're trying to get for your fighter, and that other promoters may not realize that, or understand that, is that you pretty much see already, like, okay, how much my fighter is going to get if the purse is this particular amount of money.
Yeah,
So once you see that, it's like, okay, is this going to work out for my fighter? If it's not going to work out for my fighter, then I'm not going to be able to roll with what they're offering there at the time. Real quick, man, I got to shout out my guy Smitty in the building there. You know what I'm saying? Shout out,
Smitty said I'm a hard guy to catch up with, man. Yo, Smitty, I ain't too hard to catch up with, man. You can hit me up, Smitty, man. I'm balling back at you, man.
yeah, for sure, man. You definitely hit him up, man. But like you were talking about there with Brian Norman, and he's definitely appreciated what you've been doing for him, along with Fighters First Management and Jolene, and that he's kind of went through the process there, while being under fighters first, but he's definitely happy that he's gotten to this particular stage, and he said like, quote, I'm a world champion now, and still still going, still rising. So they can only imagine how far they're gonna go. You know what I mean? So it just shows that how much you've been doing for him at that particular time to get to this point as the WBO welterweight champion.
No, we're thankful. We're thankful for Brian, man. He gave us an opportunity when we were in the beginning stages, when we were essentially a startup. He gave us an opportunity. So forever thankful for Brian Norman Jr. and Senior, man, and hopefully be along for the long ride, man, for the long haul. He's 24 now. Hopefully, we'll be having a talk when he's 34 years old, deciding what he's gonna do next in the sport or whatever it may be. So very thankful for Brian.
Yep, for sure, for sure. And I mentioned there with Justin Paulo. Of course, he's been coming up the ranks there within that particular division. Should be around that lightweight division and stuff like that. Being at the top 15 in the WBC and WBO, and they recently announced there for June 7th, San Antonio. He's going to be there in the headlining bout. That's going up against Juan Carlos Burgos there. So it's definitely a good look for Justin Paulo there as the $1 million man. No, not like Ted DiBiase, but he just has the nickname there, the $1 million man. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
definitely been good things for him, especially with him, going back and forth there from Florida and the Houston area. They're working with Coach Ronnie Shields. So talk about how Justin Paulo has been doing this thing here over the past couple of years there with Fighters First.
I used to represent Daquan Paulo, Justin's brother. Justin, when Daquan and I were working together, he signed with Golden Boy. He had a couple fights with Golden Boy. We were working together, and it was actually Errol Spence. Errol linked us together, but Daquan was the one that told me like, "Yo, like y'all got a new company, man. Like sign my brother. Like my brother can fight." And if you've watched Justin, like Justin is, I think he's a sleeper. He's flown under the radar at the 35 division, and we already had the 7th signed off on. We actually got an offer from Top Rank to fight against Keyshawn before they solidified the deal with Edwin De Los Santos. I don't think we were gonna drop our fight to take that fight, but because we were already, I think it was only a couple weeks ago, so Justin was already locked in for
with
his date. So,
okay,
but hopefully, after Justin does his thing on June the 7th, like who knows what happens after that? But he's definitely a guy that he's paid his dues, man, and he's earned a shot, whether at a title or a big payday. It's his time now, and but he has to get past the 7th, and Juan Carlos is tough. He's never been stopped before. Burgers has never been stopped, if I'm not mistaken. So it's going to be a tough fight for Justin. So we're looking forward to him dismantling this gentleman as he did the last, and see what's next from there. But Justin is definitely due a huge opportunity for the fall.
Yeah, he had a great showing there against Shavkat Rakhimov in his last bout there that ended in that pretty much like a highlight reel knockout victory there. And now going up against Juan Carlos Burgos, he's pretty much faced like a who's who there in the lightweight division. So that gives Justin Paulo another opportunity to like show like, okay, I'm ready to step up there against the top contenders and the top guys there in the lightweight division. They're coming up. So definitely looking forward to that. And then I'll have a conversation with him here later this week. So we'll be chopping up as far as like him preparing for that bout.
Shout out to Probox, man. Probox has done an amazing job, not just with Justin Paulo, but with a lot of different guys, man, putting them in position to get big fights, man. So, shout out to the entire Probox family. They've I mean, to me, they're not sleepers. I think they're a giant in the sport.
Yeah.
It's just everybody looks at, the matchrooms of the world, the top ranks of Golden Boys, but Probox is right there based off of what Jonas and, Daniel, those guys have built. So very, very proud to be linked with those guys.
Yeah, I mean, they had, a number of those fights over in Plant City. I've attended, one of those cards in Plant City. And then, soon after that, they expanded and they just blew up, from that point forward, being able to host multiple events outside of Plant City. And like you said, a number of their fighters have went on to become world champions or, had some great opportunities to, become world champions there. So, shout out to Gary Jonas there in Probox. Although I slipped up a little bit with them because I could have gotten some credentials from them for one of their events, but it just didn't quite work out. But I'll get it straight though. I'll get it straight. You know what I'm saying?
Gotcha.
So you talk about that, and then also with Figueroa got an upcoming bout here in the summer. That's also supposed to be over in San Antonio. So he's been doing this thing over in his hometown in Atlantic City. Had a victory there on March 22nd, and so he's going to be trying to build himself up also in the rankings there, as he's been with Fighters First there from pretty much the jump also.
No, man, he's I still remember talking to him on Instagram. He was reaching out. He read "Protect Yourself at All Times," and he was getting ready to turn pro. So he wanted to make sure that business wise, he was putting himself in the best position. And I just remember looking at his IG and looking at his pictures and stuff. And I'm talking to Jolene like, man, like this kid is like really good looking kid. And I mean, if he can fight, then we got something to work with this guy. And Jolene went to meet with him in New Jersey. She's from New Jersey, lives in New Jersey. And I was anticipating Jolene telling me that she didn't like him or it was something. But because Jolene really, she gives everybody a chance, but
Mhm.
for the most part, she gonna find something. But she did. She was ecstatic about Justin Figueroa, and man, it seems like it's been a blur how fast. Like remembering him as an amateur, getting ready to turn pro, and now he's already 12 fights in. And we're gonna bring him to San Antonio again in August to fight on Desi Martinez card. So Justin Figueroa, man, is the pride, the fighting pride of Atlantic City. I look forward to huge things out of Justin, but this is his developmental stage, man, and he's doing very well with the test that he's been um, put up on.
Yeah, like you said, they're 12-0 with 10 wins, but we are knockout being out there in the Atlantic City. I mean, it's a good little drive from where I'm at. But he's definitely been doing this thing, like I said, in San Antonio, and has had about 4 fights, I think, his last 4 fights in Atlantic City there. So he's kind of built his crowd up there and things like that to be able to go up in the ranks there. Like I said, 12-0, and eventually gonna get to be a title contender here pretty soon if he is in the right path, like y'all are able to guide him with it.
Hey, and Derek, so Derek just called me a good looking kid question mark. It's good. It's a part of the marketability, man. You got
Right?
to be
Yeah,
able to market the
exactly,
guys,
exactly.
man. So
Yeah,
I didn't pause that because it's like, it's just part of the marketing package,
yeah,
man.
yeah,
So
yeah, exactly, exactly. Yeah, because I mean, it's like, yeah, I mean, we sometimes we got to do that these days, man. It's like, hey, come on, y'all. All right, yeah. So, but you also talked about your time there at being a manager before there at Fighters First and being an agent as well. And it would be remiss of me because I know someone had been telling me about asking about it, like your time there with Errol Spence Jr., of course, former unified welterweight champion and things like that, and how that kind of built you or kind of like got you along the way while being able to create Fighters First there along with Jolene. So how was that experience there with Errol Spence Jr. and what's your current relationship with him is?
Oh man, still with the kid, man. Still
Yeah,
with the
yeah,
old, still with the old man. I call him old man now. Still
yeah,
with the
yeah,
old
yeah,
man. No, that's my guy, man, and that's forever gonna be my guy. But I learned a lot through working with EJ, through negotiating the Everlast deals, and just being a part of his career, and being a part of things behind the scenes. I learned so much to help take me to another level of understanding of the business, especially when dealing with someone that's considered a star or a superstar in the sport.
yeah.
Definitely learned a lot, but I'm appreciative of him for giving a guy a chance because I mean he has one of the best or had one of the best working for him with Al Heyman and Sylvia Owens. Like you can't ask for two better people to guide your career. So excuse me. So for him to still see fit for me to be a part of his journey, just meant a lot to me. And it still means a lot to me. But definitely learned a lot being a part of his career and still learning, dealing with the old man. Still learning.
Yeah, yeah, no doubt. I mean, we talk about link it up and things like that, and we kind of like culminated to a point there with 2022. Being there at AT&T Stadium and headlining, that bout there against your Dennis Ugas at AT&T Stadium and that scene out there. So that like I said, I still, think about that joint, man. That was a crazy scene right there. You know what I mean? So, being part of that and making and seeing that all of that come to fruition, that was definitely an experience there for you.
Yeah, man. I mean, but even before that, that was just one. I mean, he did Mikey Garcia.
Yeah.
So we were able to see it from the practice stadium or practice field in Dallas at Ford, and
Hmm.
then moving to AT&T, man. But I always tell him, man, he stimulates the market here in Dallas when he fights. And, having the Dallas Cowboys behind you doesn't hurt either, even though I'm not a Cowboys fan. So in my eyes, it
Yeah,
hurts
yeah,
him.
yeah, yeah,
It
yeah.
hurts him, but but it helps him tremendously having Jerry Jones and that star behind him. But I'm just I'm happy that I was a part of that era, and then I look forward to what's next for the old man. So it's gonna be exciting.
Word, word, word. I think you're a Niners fan, so that's probably
Yeah,
why you was
exactly,
like,
exactly.
yeah, because I know being out there at the practice facility in Frisco and everything like that, you see all this cowboy stuff, you're like, oh man, I kind of walked through
Hey
all this.
man, it's painful because I mean, it's I'm from here. I grew up here,
Yeah,
so I was raised on the Niners, and the Cowboys have some really cool merchandise, man. But it's not allowed in this house, and Ace has been brainwashed to be a 49ers fan, so there'll be no stars in this residence at all.
gotcha, gotcha, gotcha. So, we talk about you having your two books that you wrote, and you kind of go over a number of the lessons there as far as like being an agent, being a manager, and telling young athletes like this is the way things go out here. Now you talk about the thing with the boxing front, right? But you also, as it was mentioned there, dealing with NBA players and things like that too. But recently you had the thing there with college now implementing that they get the stipends and all this stuff with their negotiations to basically get paid on the college level. So now it changes things to where now 16 and 17-year-olds have to consider what to look for or who to sign with and how those type of things work. So have you looked into that as far as like young athletes coming out of high school though?
No, I haven't. 'Cause I feel when you start dealing with, in Texas we have UIL, and then the NCAA and all the different rules they have now for NIL, and it gets to a point where it's confusing. So for me, um, my lane is boxing, and I wish that we could have a collegiate, NCAA can have a collegiate program um, for boxers, and they can give scholarships to boxers, and you can get that collegiate experience with the scholarship, so you can get your education while still fighting.
Yeah.
But I'm not interested right now to get into the whole NIL market. I get that it's a lot of money, but it's, I follow my passions, man, and right now that's not a passion of mine. If an athlete needs help, then I have no problem helping. But given certain things that have been implemented as far as rules sake goes, I don't want to get caught up in anything illegal or anything where I'm kind of crossing a line or an
Hmm.
invisible line I don't know anything about. So I'm very careful. But I believe the parents, especially that age, 16, 17, if Ace becomes the number one player in the nation in any sport, you bet your ass you got to come through me for anything. I don't care who you are, who you think you are. I don't care what type of offer you have. I don't care how much money it is. If you're going to talk directly to him, then you're automatically in last place, knowing that his father is heavily involved. And you skip over me to go talk to my son, it's damn near a wrap like for you. And I had to learn that through Errol Spence Sr. It was actually Errol Spence Sr. that kind of pulled me to the side and was like, this was years ago when I was in my 20s. I think I was like 24, 25. And he was like, man, you go directly to the fighters and build a relationship with them, and you like ignore the parents and you don't talk to the parents. You think that the fighter is the one that's the lone decision maker, and it's not. You got to talk to the parents. And at
Hmm.
first, I didn't think anything of it, but I wasn't a father then. Now, being a dad, I completely understand it. So that advice helped me with Brian Norman Sr. and Brian Norman Jr. I went directly to Brian Norman Sr., even though I know I had access to Brian Norman Jr. So I feel like athletes in other sports, the families, the mom, dad, grandma, whoever the guardian is, everyone needs to be knowledgeable of the business or have an NIL agent or a sports agent come talk to them, even attorney, to help them understand what their son or daughter is getting into, and go from there.
Yeah, and you talk about when you did start out. There's like being an agent and things like that. Like you didn't know those ins and outs as far as like talking with your athletes and having a relationship with the athlete, but also having a relationship with the parent as well. And you being around the Texas area, as we know there from history, like Texas is a crazy football state. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? And they be like having some crazy budgets. Like get the NCAA, like the state of Texas themselves would have like a crazy budget for high school football over there. So,
Right, right.
so kind of like having that as far as like being involved in that and NIL, yeah, it's a whole different animal,
Whole
whole
different
different
world. Whole different world,
you
man.
wouldn't want to roll around with, man. Shout out to my guy L Dot Boxing in the building. Check it in, man. What's going on there with you? You also talked about there being an agent, and what would you say is one of the biggest setbacks that like fighters kind of like go through when going through their particular career, because they could have hiccups there when it comes to their progress, building themselves up as a fighter, a potential contender, but could get stuck on something. So what would you say is the big setback for some fighters in your opinion?
I mean, these days it's social media. I think guys are looking too much on social media, comparing themselves to the next person, or looking at what the next person may have, or thinking that, oh well, I'm better than this person, I deserve this, or I should get this, rather than just putting the work in, and showing people, whether it's through your work or through your results, that you are better than that person. But it's just too much kind of looking at what someone else is doing. I think that's the biggest setback for most fighters. And social media does that. I do believe in just kind of putting your head down and just putting the work in. And you can see certain things, but not try to become it, or not try to copy or trace somebody else. But yeah, that's the biggest thing that I would say, that it could be a setback or a distraction
Mm,
for fighters. From a management standpoint, I tell managers, man, just be careful with leading with your money. Like, you want to keep guys hungry, man. Like, this is a, they call it a poor man's sport, but if you dump a shitload of money onto a young kid that hasn't found his work ethic or his rhythm yet, you know, I, I know what it's like to make money, man, and it makes you complacent. It makes you a little bit lazy. So it's like you get a quote unquote signing bonus from a manager, and it's like 8 miles turns into 4 miles real quick, or two a
mm.
days turn into, I'm gonna just hit it one time, and then all of a sudden
Yeah, they get the
you see,
silk, as they say, the silk pajamas, right? You know what I'm
oh
saying?
yeah,
Getting out there with the
yeah.
silk, So yeah.
Seeing videos, guys who they on boats, they on yachts, they popping bottles and stuff like that. There's nothing wrong with that. I did it when I was in my 20s, and I'm not even an athlete.
Mm,
However, it's just once you earn it, if it's just a quote unquote bonus or a stipend, you didn't earn the money. Hell, if anything, you got to pay it back. It's after you win a title or you get your first big payday, then do your thing, but don't do it prematurely, man. So that's my thing.
word, no doubt, no doubt. And shout out my guy L Dub in the building. I think you kind of missed the question that I had for Adrian reference to Brother Errol, so you get come back to that. But it said like if any boxer insiders that became a boxing manager, and how would the two correlate with each other?
Do I know any boxers, like former boxers, that became a manager after their career was
Could,
done?
yeah, it could be like a former boxer or like trainer or something
Yeah, I
like
think
that.
I think Phil Greco. I think Phil Greco is a manager, and I think he's making some noise. I don't know. I want to say he represents the guy that beat H2O. Um, I can't think
Oh,
of his name, but I think that's Phil Greco's
Lucas
guy.
Body, yeah, Lucas Body, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's Phil's guy. So Phil, had a good career. I want to say Phil fought against Errol, if I'm not mistaken.
Hmm.
But yeah, he's retired now, and now he's on the managerial side of things. We need younger creative managers, man. That's why I created the course that I have, which I saw on Boxing Scene that they did a story, and I saw like 6 comments, people like talking down on the course. But it's like damned if you do, damned if you don't. There's I've been a manager now, what, 15. I've been in the management game 15 years, man. I came in 2010, after being in the amateurs for 2 years in college. Literally, man, I used to go on the internet just try to find anything that could help me learn what it meant to be a boxing manager. There was nothing on the internet. And you
Hmm.
can fast forward 10 years when I was in the game, there was still nothing that you can find. I think until Protect Yourself at All Times came out, and then I know Roy Eaglebright started Fight Promoter University, but Roy's a like Hall of Fame promoter. His I think his course was more so for promoters than it
Hmm.
was managers, because I don't remember Roy being a manager. So there was really nothing to teach you what it was to be a manager in the sport. There was no course or there was no class or college that could teach you. So I introduced something that could help you at least hit the ground running. Because man, I went through hell. Excuse me, I went through hell learning on the fly. Like, even though Jerry Belmontes made it to a world title, I think I mismanaged Jerry Belmontes. I was 23 years old, 24 years old. I
Hmm.
was looking for help, pleading with anybody to help me,
Hmm.
and there was no one that came to help. Same thing with James De La Rosa. I knew more managing James through what I learned from Jerry, but I
Hmm.
still made different mistakes in my 20s, but I was learning on the fly, you know what I'm saying? So this course is called the Boxing Manager Certificate. What I'm doing is eliminating young managers coming into the game that have to learn on the fly. So I'm giving you pretty much the game in under an hour on what you should and shouldn't do. The rest you just have to figure out on your own, but at least you can say, all right, I got a good starting point. I got good traction taking off. But it's crazy how people are like, oh man, this is a waste, don't do it. And I'm like, what's the other alternative? Because all we got is older managers right now. We need some younger blood, and this is a start for them to take off. So shout out to guys like, you know what I'm saying, I don't want to mess up PG's name, but Paul, I think it's Garino, Ryan Recton, like Phil Greco. We got some younger managers in the game now, but we
Hmm.
need more, man, because Jay Prince has been on top for the longest. Like Jay been around for a while. Frank Espinosa,
JB and all that
all
for
those
a
guys have been
minute. Yeah.
around for a while. We need younger managers in the game because the sport is getting younger. So it's that
Mhm.
time, man.
Yeah, gotcha, man. Shout out to my guy Gary, man. Gary, Gary out there in Florida and stuff like that, man. He said, shout out to you, man. He said, yeah, he wanted to see if you could go out there, with him as he's gonna be, doing this thing over in the DR, man. He's gonna be getting married and all that. So shout out to him. But you said,
Dope,
man, you be all over the place and stuff like that. You feel me?
dope, dope,
Yeah,
dope.
yeah. And I think he had like another question that like goes back to one thing I mentioned what I was talking about earlier, and you brought up the thing there with the promoters. When it comes to the thing there with Brian Norman, you talk about the situation there with getting the deal done with Jen Sasaki, and we had something there where it could have either been like with Jen Sasaki or with Jerron Boots in it. So kind of like explain that particular situation if you can.
To be honest, to be honest, man, I don't know what. I think Eddie Hearn is a great promoter. I think he's one of the best out there. But at the same time, I feel like the previous negotiation when we first kind of came into the encounter with that, it was like a rush job. He didn't want to do the Karen rematch, so he was looking to rush and try to get something done with Brian Norman Jr. And it's like negotiations, even though it was a couple weeks essentially, it felt rushed. And then it's like this whole story was turned on us that we turned down we never turned down anything. We just had a set number that we were gunning for. And like they eventually walked away from the table. So, he just put out an interview, I think today or yesterday, that they made an offer to us, or they came to the table trying to see if we wanted to fight in the fall. And like to me, words matter. And one of the words he said was like, they said they were not willing to negotiate. It's like bro, like we have a fight on June the 19th. Even though what he's talking about is not unheard of, there's been plenty of deals. I mean, I had one with Willie Monroe when he fought Gabe Rosado, and we signed a deal to fight Canelo the next fight. If we beat Gabe Rosado, then we would get Canelo the next fight. And we already negotiated the purse or whatever it may be. That fight didn't happen because Canelo broke his hand or whatever. But that was for Willie Monroe, a guy that was a challenger looking for an opportunity to try to fight for a belt or whatever. Brian
Mhm.
Norman is not in that situation. So for us, like, bro, we'll negotiate after the Jin Sasaki fight. Like, to me, that's simple. Like, I don't even know why he even. I think he just wanted to let people know that there was an offer that was made. But I'm like, bro, we'll talk. Like, once this fight is over with, we'll come to a negotiation once this fight is over with, and we can have like the focal point of getting that done. But I don't like making things public, especially negotiations. I feel like that should
Mhm.
be done between us and the promoter. But it's like, okay, cool. If you want to make things public, then cool. After this fight, it's gonna get uncomfortably public. But hopefully he's ready for that. I come to the table to get deals done. But
Mhm.
again, the deal has to be right, the money has to be right. And if both of those are not gonna line up, then good luck to him. Like, I don't. I got love for the fans, some of them, but I'm not here to make deals to make fans happy. I don't work for fans, so I don't. I know I get flagged for that shit. Like the last fight, people went in on me. I don't care. It can be the same thing for this fight, bro. The deal has to be right. The money has to be right. If it's not gonna be those two things, bro, only Brian Norman can be like, yo, just get the deal done. I don't care what it is. Make it happen. Only he has the executive decision to be like, yo, I'm doing this. Make it happen. As long as he's telling me, bro, give me the best deal. Give me the best money. That's what it's going to be.
Yeah, so when it comes to that, all we got to do is just wait until after June 19th,
Simple.
to see what happens there with that. So,
Simple.
that's the thing about it is, as you said, you're trying to do what's best for your fighter and be able to get the contract thing done to where your fighter is going to be able to get a good amount of money there, and
Yeah,
that
but hey, but fans don't want to hear that shit. It's like, yo, we want to see the fight, make the fight happen. It's like, yo, like Brian wants to fight. I'm pretty sure Jerome wants to fight, but there's a lot of things that have to be done. You know what I'm saying, before that actually comes into play. And I'm down to make it happen. It's just still got to be right. Money got to be right.
Gotcha. My guy L Dub here says, how being a boxing insider can translate to being a manager.
When he
Like as
says,
far as like maybe like being involved with the number of events that happen, or covering the sport or that type of thing. As far as like having access to multiple fighters and multiple events, how that could translate to saying, hey, okay,
oh man,
maybe I
yeah,
could work something out like that.
yeah, man. I mean, it all depends on your relationships, and if the fighters got trust for you to get things done for them, then it's really open for anybody to get into. That's the great, but also the bad thing about boxing is so wide open that anybody can get into it. But no, man, if you are a guy that fighters have a trust for, they know that they have relationships, then you're fit for this game. I think a lot of fans, people that have a passion for the sport, the different positions that you play in this sport changes your lenses on things. So if you were a manager and you had a guy that you were looking to build to become a world champion, there's certain fights that you wouldn't take on the build up just based off of you trying to get them to a certain trajectory or a certain price point. Or if you're a promoter, there's a certain way you would move a guy. But as a fan, when you don't have a dog in the fight, yeah, you're gonna
Right.
say, I just want to see the best fights that's possible, which I understand that. But no, it's open season, man, for anybody to get in. You just got to find what you bring to the table, essentially what your strength is, and then pull up a chair. So it's definitely feasible for an insider to get into it.
Word for sure, for sure. And guy there, L Dub, there, says, hey, he's looking into trying to become a boxing manager. So he might probably look into work with it and things like that, man. So it just got a couple more things here. We talk about there, writing your books, and you said something in reference to you like to get things started off or jump off things and whether it's writing a book or getting things started or something like that. Like what does that motivation come from as far as like I wouldn't necessarily say getting things done but getting things started, because usually that's the toughest thing to do is to get things started.
Right. Yeah. I'm big on, man, if I like the repetitive thoughts, like if I keep thinking about it, and I do. I pay attention to my surroundings, man, and the signs are all around us. Like there's signs literally all around us. So if I'm thinking about something, I keep thinking about it, and I keep seeing certain signs. Then I take the necessary steps to get started. Like for example, with protect yourself at all times. To actually write the book, I was actually planning on doing a symposium. I had no thoughts of doing a book. It was just me doing kind of like this open forum speech, helping fighters understand about the business side of boxing, which nothing was out there at the time. James De La Rosa was supposed to fight David Lemieux, and this was back in 2000 and I want to say 15, I believe. And the fight ended up getting canceled because Lemieux came in like 6 pounds or 4 pounds overweight, and like he started rehydrating like after he was clearly overweight. We had a set contract. The promoter at the time told me he couldn't do more than a certain amount. So we low key got played to come over, and they thought that we were just gonna take the fight. And I remember Rob Diaz, he was with Golden Boy at the time. He was like, "Man, you just remember what you are preaching to people. You're talking about protect yourself at all times. This is an opportunity to protect your fighter." And man, I remember just thinking like, damn, all right, Lemieux's a heavy knockout puncher, man. Like I can't let my guy just walk into a massacre like this. So I tried to negotiate more money, and I had my fighter, James, his wife, his dad. We were all in this room with David Lemieux's people and just a bunch of people I didn't know. And we're trying to get a deal done. I was asking for crazy money because I knew their back was against the wall. They ended up walking away, but my client and his wife and his dad were just appreciative that I let them into that negotiation and I had their best interest. So when I got back to the States, I was at my crib just thinking, thinking, thinking. And all of a sudden, man, I just kind of thought about the weekend and everything. And I was like, yo, I should fucking write a book about this. And
Mhm.
that's how Protect Yourself at All Times came into fruition. Like I ended up writing a book based off of an event or events that happened
Mhm.
um, in regards to like what I actually did like for a living back then. So for me, man, it's just I keep thinking about it and I got the passion for it. And I don't, one key thing artists have to understand, like, bro, I don't care about being humiliated. I don't care about being laughed at. I don't care about people talking bad about me, like dissing me, like shitting on my pride. I don't care about none of that, bro. So once you get to that point, that's like liberation, bro. It's like freedom to
Mhm.
create and do your thing. Once you get there, then it's really easy to create whatever it is that you want to. But it takes time to get through those things because, like Erica Badu said, you get to a point to where I'm an artist and I'm sensitive about my shit. But then you get to a point to where it's freedom, man. Where I think of something, I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna do a rap album. I'm not a rapper at all, but like the
Mhm.
thing you see behind me is the cover to
Yeah.
this rap album that I did, and it's like people are like, "Bro, like, what are you doing? Why would you do that?" Shit, I wanted to. I kept thinking about it. I started
Yeah.
writing rhymes, so I'm like, "Fuck, it,
Mhm.
I'm gonna just do it." So, like the slogan says, man, just do it. That's where my mind goes sometimes.
Word for sure. Because I was going to ask about that. They're behind you. Where that comes from, but like you said, it's pretty much part of the thing there where you say, hey, you're doing an album, so it's all
Yeah,
about doing it. That's the thing about it. It's all about doing it. You feel me?
yeah,
So that's the thing, man. Shout out to my guy, Talk Trends in the building there, man. You know what I'm saying? They got your books there, of course. What is it
appreciate it.
available through like Amazon or I think through your website too, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, you go to the website or you go to Amazon, man, and there's also an audio book. I did an audio book to where I just kind of ad lib what I want guys to know. So yeah, man, it's the information is out there, and I think I need to
Mhm.
do a better job of kind of doubling, tripling down on things. But there's just a lot I have on my plate, so sometimes that's my excuse. Like, I'm busy. So,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No
but
problem.
it's out there though.
All right, for sure. And now, one more thing here. Got there, brother Chalk Trends. Here to just visit. We talked about it here for a little bit, but he asked, "Do you think Spence is done?"
I got a comment. I got. Do I actually have to comment?
Well, you don't necessarily have to comment. I mean, because you kind of like talked about
If,
it here a little
I
bit.
mean,
You know what I
if
mean?
it
But
honestly, if he was done, then he would have said that he was done already. So it's like, if you ain't heard that he was done, then that's your answer right there.
word for sure, man. Because a lot. of course, like you said, in reference to his popularity, a lot of people, look forward to seeing him come back here. So we got to see, what's going on and what's going down. So
Yeah,
we'll see what happens there when it comes to Errol Spence Jr. and things like that. But at least for now, he's kind of good. He's chilling out. Got his managerial thing going on and all that type of stuff. So he's been really successful outside the ring too. So once he makes that decision, then the people will know about it. You know what I mean?
right, right, exactly. Once he
So
makes that decision, they'll know about it.
yeah. So is there anything else here that you would like the people to know about here?
No, hey man, if there's any aspiring boxing managers out there, man, anybody that sees himself getting in the sport or wanting to know more about the sport, man, um, I created a new course, boxing manager certificate, that's available on teachable.com. So it's a legit site. You got to worry about getting scammed out your bread or whatever, but it's worth the money, especially if you're passionate about the sport and you can see yourself making money from the sport. Then it's definitely something to get into. I'm a guy that I graduated from college, but I wasn't grandfathered into this, man. My dad wasn't no world champion. My mom didn't work for a promotional company. My brother wasn't a fighter. I literally, man, just was pulled into this. I think the sport kind of chose me, and I had to scratch and claw to figure this shit out. But I look at how my life is and the fights I've been a part of and the negotiations and um, not even the money, man. It's just the experiences that I've gotten, and I've gotten to travel all around the world just for being in boxing. I think it's a great opportunity for someone to get into, and I'm going to be offering internships probably in the fall through Fighters First for people that actually take the course and want an opportunity to know what it's like to manage a fighter. So the boxing manager certificate is available on teachable.com. If you follow me on IG or any other platforms, you'll be able to find the link through through those platforms. But I think it's really um, I think it's something that if you're passionate about the sport and you see yourself as a representative or an insider in the sport, you should definitely get into it. Definitely.
Where so you go to teachable.com and also follow him on Instagram. He's also there on Twitter, Facebook as well, but mainly Instagram and Twitter for that type of stuff there, man.
Yeah.
uh and what was it got gold member here in the building says, do you have to live in a major city to get involved in boxing? I mean,
Not at all. Not at
yeah.
all. Not at all, man. I mean, I've gotten people that took the course that reached out to me that from hell small places in California I never heard of before. Certain females. Shout out to Ryan Nico. She lives. I think she's from St. Louis but lives in Detroit or whatever. But she took the course. So it's if you're trying to get in this sport, man, it's wide open. This is literally the Wild West. Anybody can get into this sport. It's just what you do when you're in it and how you move while you're in it
Yeah.
are the most important things, man. Because a lot of people get in it, and like there's people that come in with millions of dollars that get out the sport with their tail tucked between their legs, and then you got a guy like me. I grew up poor and got in the sport and actually found my footing and was able to do some things, man. So you don't need a whole bunch of money to be successful in this sport. The money helps sometimes if you know what to do with it, but
Hmm.
you can be anywhere in the world, and it don't matter your socioeconomic status, bro. If you got the grind, you got the connections, it's up.
Yeah, definitely about the connections. As the saying goes, man, it ain't who you know, it's who knows you. So
Damn right. Damn
that's
right.
pretty much
Yep.
what it is
Yep.
there. So big ups, big thanks as always here for chopping it up here on the Boxing Source podcast, and we'll definitely catch up here to get more on Fighters First Management, and of course I got one of your fighters here, Justin Paulo, will be
Yep.
chopping up with here real soon. So definitely thankful for you to join us here, and look forward to more here from you and Fighters First Management.
Man, I appreciate you always having me on, bro. And then it's always good seeing you, man. I see you in the most random places, bro. So I'm pretty sure I'll see you before this year is over with
Yeah,
in a
yeah,
random
man. It's,
spot.
it's like folks be saying, like, man, it's like I be everywhere, man. Hey, my brother called me savoir faire. I'm like, oh, come on, man. Like, come on, bro. But yeah, that's usually how it goes sometimes in the boxing game, as far as like me, covering the sports. So I'll be in various places if I'm able to make it. So that's how it goes with me sometimes. You feel me?
All right, bro. Well, you take care, man. Thank you for having me.
All right, no doubt, man. You too. Take care of yourself,
Yes,
man.
sir.
All right, no doubt. So that's my guy there, brother Adrian Clark, of course, CEO of Fighters First Management. Has those books there, a couple of books there that we were talking about that's available on Amazon, and also through his website. So you have that to look forward to. I guess you missed a thing there, Secret Dance Move, man. If they're able to get him that question there, reference to Deontay Wilder, they're supposed to be scheduled to get back in the ring here late in June. So we're definitely looking forward to seeing the former WBC heavyweight champion get back in the ring. But we definitely had a great conversation there with Adrian Clark, and shout out to everyone that's been able to participate there in the live chat, ask some questions and things like that too. Also had like another good conversation in reference to action that happened here this past weekend, particularly this fight here with Anthony Casasi and Lee Wood. Of course, there with Casasi, being there as the IBO Super Featherweight Championship. He had the IBF Super Featherweight Championship as well there when he beat up Joe Cordina. He had the following fight there against Josh Warrington over in Wembley Stadium. I was at Wembley Stadium there, but I didn't make it to Wembley Stadium, in time for that fight, man. I got there mad late. I only saw probably about 3 or 4 fights on the card, there, including the main event. So I wasn't able to make it to see Casasi there against Josh Warrington. And so now he has this fight against Lee Wood that happened yesterday. And, he was able to get the TKO victory over Lee Wood to defend that IBO Super Featherweight title. You know what I mean? So, good performance by him. He's, had these string of key victories there within the UK, now at 24-1 with 9 of those wins by way of knockout there. And, we got to see how he, he's in the mix there within the super featherweight division. Some folks are, talking here about in the live chat about, what's going down with the number of the fighters involved at 130 pounds. Of course, we're going to be talking about, Emmanuel Navarrete here in a bit. But, you also have fighters that's holding world titles such as like Lamont Rose Jr. And we all know with Lamont Rose Jr., he's, basically waiting, he's in the gym. He's just waiting on that phone call for, it to be official and everything like that for that rematch. We looking for, maybe that first or second weekend of August. Hopefully it's by the end because, we thought it would be in June. You know what I'm saying? I thought it would be in June. Nope. You thought it would be in July. Folks talk about July 19th, whatever it is or whatnot. Nope. It looks like we're going to have another big event on July 19th over in Las Vegas while we had 3 or 4 other fights going on, right? So we just waiting on that announcement to take place too. So here it's just about, the waiting game there for Lamont Rose Jr. But, like I said here, with Anthony Casasi, you got, O'Shaquie Foster, WBC champion. He got something lined up. You know what I mean? And as I mentioned with Lamont Rose Jr., well, after this rematch, man, I'll be like, you know what? It really isn't much for him to, be there at 130 pounds. So you got Albert Gaziev there as the interim champion right now. So, hey, you might as well have Casasi there in the mix with, Gaziev to get the WBA belt. And what I talked about there with Sugar Nunez or Eduardo Nunez that has his belt coming up on May 28th for the vacant IBF belt. So that kind of tells you what the 130-pound division is here at this particular point, right? But, we get into that whole thing with the main event of the top-ranked card that happened in San Diego, whatnot. Emmanuel Navarrete, Charly Suarez, Navarrete, going in there to defend his WBO belt against Charly Suarez, who is there at, as it was mentioned, 36 years old, right? But, he was there, he's 36 years old, but he could, he could really do his thing, man. He could crack, you know what I mean? So that was the thing about, him getting in this position to fight Emmanuel Navarrete for that WBO Super Featherweight Championship. Suarez was there at 18-0, but he had a very long amateur career, man. He was there for forever, man. 12 years in the amateur ranks. That's a long time there. But he was able to get himself in the mix to compete and be a world title contender I think it was when he had his win over Paul Fleming a couple of years ago that put him in the spot, and he just had a couple of fights there to keep his position there at the top of the WBO rankings. Finally got this opportunity here against Emmanuel Navarrete, and it was action from the jump there, from the first round. But I mean, that's Emmanuel Navarrete, being the guy that has the offense, definitely throws a lot of punches. But while throwing a lot of punches, it also opens him up for counter punch opportunities there, and that's the thing there with Charly Suarez. And for me, Suarez had the punch of power too to really have Navarrete be honest there on a couple of occasions. But of course, we had that moment there where you had Suarez and Navarrete there that was in close quarters, where Charly Suarez, right, he threw a left and he connected with the left and he came forward, and then they both came together. And then once Charly Suarez drew back, then people saw that noticeable cut there above Emmanuel Navarrete, right? And live, man, when I was seeing it and I saw the first replay, I'm like, man, that was a punch, man. That was a punch, man. I didn't see nothing where for me it was more of Charly Suarez, how we reacted coming back from being in close quarters with Emmanuel Navarrete. Like, you didn't see like any type of jerky moment or whatever it is, where he kind of like pulled back or something. You feel me? So with that being said, I'm like, oh man, this is gonna be something. And then they announced that it was due to an accidental headbutt, and I'm like, oh man, come on, man. That was a punch, man. And so they continued to go at it. It was still like some great action, over the course of those following rounds there. Sixth round, it got like real bad. You know what I mean? And then seventh round, it was pretty much like a wrap. But you seen there with Charly Suarez, he was tagging Navarrete with some good lead hands there, because Navarrete, he just, like I said, he just be going forward and doesn't really like have like a good guard or tries to do a catch and slip. He more of like does it with movement and having the reach and stuff like that. But here, from a tail of the tape, Charly Suarez was the one with the longer reach, right? So you had that, and also the thing with Navarrete, of course, the story leading into the bout was Emmanuel Navarrete having to weigh in like 4 or 5 times in order to make the 130-pound limit, because he was already like about like 0.5 or 0.4 overweight. Then he had to come back in a couple hours, and then he was like 0.3, and then he had to do it again. It was like 0.2. I don't know if he had to do a little bit of some cut off some of his hair or something, but he finally made weight, and so he had to really work. It looked like he really had to work in order to make that weight for the fight. But it still didn't, take away from his, energy level, being able to swing and laying a number of good punches there early. But like I said, Charly Suarez was right there for him each and every time. And then you had that moment there, and for it to, be able to go to the scorecards, I was like, man, that just, took away from Charly Suarez to, potentially get back in the fight. And then we get to the scorecards, and they have it at 78-75, but then 2 scores of 77-76 in favor of Emmanuel Navarrete. And I'm like, oh man. So they could have had it where that's basically like 4 rounds to 3 there in favor of Navarrete, right? In one score of like 5 rounds to 2. But if you go in that 8th round or whatever it is, and then Charly Suarez gets back in it, then you can have an even fight. It could be a majority draw or whatever. But also with, shout out to, my guy there, Aladdin, out there, production team. You know what I mean? He's out there on ESPN. He's been doing this thing on ESPN or whatever, right? He be out there, with Top Ranking them. But they put up the replay after the whole fight. And then they just had the thing like super slow mo, and they could see like after Charly Suarez landed that punch, you could see immediately after, you could see the cut start right after that, before he got in close to where they could say, "Oh, it's a headbutt." And then Jack Reese talk about, "Oh, there's inconclusive evidence at the time for them to reverse the decision." Yeah, I'm like, man, oh my god, it had to be Jack Reese. Jack Reese strikes again. Jack Reese strikes again, man. But but shout out to those the representatives over at Top Rank. They look like they're working on having this decision to be modified, but it can be completely reversed there, man. You can't like they. I don't think they're going fully give it to Charly Suarez for him to be the new WBO super featherweight champion. But they say, hey, this does constitute for a rematch. But hey, given the severity of that cut, hey man, Navarrete might be out for a good little bit. So you ain't gonna see this rematch for what, like another 7-8 months maybe. So, but on that front though, given that it's Suarez, if I'm not mistaken, he was the mandatory challenger for the WBO title. So if we would have got that win, he wouldn't have had that rematch. He wouldn't have to have a rematch there with Emmanuel Navarrete. And also, of course, from a business perspective, as we talked about there with Adrian Clark here earlier, from a business perspective, as a champion, you get, of course, a completely different type of purse there on that front, being a champion than being or coming back there as a challenger. So that really affects what I would say, the ability for Charly Suarez to earn a certain amount of purse, or a minimum, pretty much like a purse minimum as world champion, if he was able to get that decision as the WBO super featherweight champion there. So great, good, very, very good fight nonetheless. But hey, Charly Suarez, man, he got swiped down on that front, man. He got swiped on that front, and a number of folks here, on the chat was talking about it, like, hey, he got hoes. You know what I mean? He got hoes. It said Charly Suarez calls his right hand his headbutt hand. He actually threw the right hand and landed on top. Hey, I don't know, man. So it says caused an accidental headbutt with his right hand. So you see where the confusion comes in. I mean, I thought that it was a solid shot there. You know what I mean? Um, we got here on the chat. Secret Dance Move thinks in reference to Kasasi. Says that Kasasi beats Navarrete, and pretty sure he beats Foster, Roach, and whoever becomes IBF champ, Nunez, and who is it that they got there in the top is Masanori Rikishi. So that's supposed to be the fight there on May 28th. Eduardo Nunez versus Masanori Rikishi there for that vacant IBF title. Lamar Roach, I don't know about all that. But like I said, after this rematch with Tank, I really don't see Lamont Roach going back down to 130, especially after what happened in the first fight. A number of fighters there at 135 were saying that, hey, I would like a fight with Lamont Roach Jr. So for Lamont Roach, it's like, okay, if I'm getting all of these people here at 135 interested in fighting me, what would be the point for me to go back down to 130 and have that, especially when they had like a little bit of a discussion between Lamar Roach and O'Shaquie Foster before the Tank fight came up. And hey, it's probably better for Lamar Roach Jr. to say, hey, I'm gonna just continue my career here at 135 pounds. You know what I mean? So there's that. But for Navarrete, it kind of like shows where he is as far as like his standing overall. Yeah, he's had these times where he's been a multi-division world champion. We had that instance where he tried to win the 135-pound belt when it was vacated, but fell short there against Dennis Berinchik. And now here coming back down to 130, had a couple of fights here, and even with that, having a fight against Valdez, I mean, it's Valdez. I just thought that was a style mismatch there, with Valdez and Navarrete. So yeah, I just feel like style like Navarrete would beat a Valdez like that every single time. So there's that. But outside of that, with Navarrete, we'll have to see here. He says that he says that he could probably continue his career in 130 pounds, but yeah, that weight cut was crazy. You know what I mean? Yeah. Sugar Dad Smooth says on the chat in reference to Lamont Rose, he said Tank knocks him out inside 4 rounds. He's no longer in demand like he is now. Yeah, I mean, we'll see. We'll see. I just think, given what happened there in the first fight, that these two styles are just, mess with each other to make good fights. They had the history. They've been had the history in the amateurs and in the pros working around the same area. Tank was like leading into this, he was like, working over at Headbangers Gym in Washington, D.C. But, they've had a couple of, workouts within the D.C. area. So it's all about familiarity and what, about your fighter. And if, Lamar Roach can, basically do what he does there in the first fight, and hey, he could have a serious shot here in this rematch. And my initial interview with him before that fight became official, March 1st, one of the things that I pointed out was when he started his career, it was above 130 pounds. He started up above 130 and then got eventually down to 130 and competed at 130 for an extended period of time before having this opportunity at 135. And then on the flip side, you got Tank Davis, who, has started his career at what, like 126? So, hey, here it is. Shout out to Adonis here. He says that he was in the arena during that fight. They're really gonna rob Suarez. Yeah, man. I mean, the thing, I guess the best thing they can do is just make it a no contest and, schedule for a rematch. But, as it was mentioned earlier, it's completely different when you're going in a rematch as a challenger than as a champion. And given the potential situation that it was, if it was that Charly Suarez was a mandatory challenger for Emmanuel Navarrete and he got that win, then that's it. There is no rematch. You know what I mean? Big up Lance here in the building. Says, what's good? You know what I mean? Like I said, man, to support the podcast, hit the like button, hit the share button, whether it's here live on YouTube or it's going to be available here on Spotify and other podcast apps. You know what I mean? He says, Donna said if they were going to rob Suarez once started to do something with the scorecards. Hey, I don't know. You probably was close enough to see them judges or something. You know what I mean? Judges, and you had the officials there on ringside or whatever. You know what I mean? I don't know. You say even try to blame the gloves. I don't know. The kid, for me, I don't know what it is with the gloves, man. Because sometimes, with the gloves, you pick the gloves. The opponent's team approves the gloves and all that type of stuff. So, and necessarily it'll be like that. It has someone talking about Anthony Casasi here also. It's still in the chat. Says that Supreme thinks that Casasi can't beat Nunez or Masanori Rikishi. He said that he vacated because Nunez. Oh yeah, that's right. Remember, y'all, Casasi was the IBF and IBO champion. IBF and IBO champion, right? And after he got the IBF belt, the next fight, he didn't have the IBF belt when he fought Josh Warrington in Wembley Stadium. Hey, that's something right there. That's something right there, Supreme. But yeah, back to the joint there with the Navarrete and Charly Suarez. Like I said, that it's a very, very tough break for Charly Suarez. He could, be 19-0 as the WBO super featherweight champion, but that tough, very, very, very tough break for him. So we got to see here what happens here over the next couple of days, and I'm also chop it up with a couple people there that were, kind of like involved and see, what their thoughts were about it. All right. So also there in the co-feature bout, you had for the IBF interim lightweight title, Ray Murataya versus Zaro Abdullayev. There with Murataya coming in there with a record of 22-0. Zaro Abdullayev there with a record of 20-1. The lone loss was a stoppage to Devin Haney over at the theater in Madison Square Garden in 2019. Yeah, I was there, pretty much there, man. Like he pretty much like dusted Abdullayev at that time there to become what was it, like the WBC interim champion or something like that. And then you had the whole little franchise belts and all that type of stuff that was going on during that time. But yeah, Abdullah hadn't lost since that point, so he got right back in the mix to be a top contender for a lightweight title. These two guys were at the top of the rankings here for the IBF. Vasyl Lomachenko what is represented as the IBF champion, but I mean, Vasyl Lomachenko hasn't been heard from since his win over George Kambosos Jr. And I talk with folks there within Top Rank or whatever it is, and they were saying like they ain't really getting much from Vasyl Lomachenko as far as like coming back, and at least for me, man, I don't think he's coming back, man. I don't think he's coming back. If it was Vasyl Lomachenko, only way I'll be coming back is if I'm getting a fight, with either maybe a Shakur Stevenson or a Tank Davis. Outside of that, nah, it ain't. I don't think he would want to, get up out the bed for, those fights. It's just being real. But given this fight here with Ray Murataya and Zaro Abdullayev, Murataya getting his, work on as far as like building himself up to become a world contender there in the lightweight division, and now having this opportunity here against Zaro Abdullayev, I say, was a pretty good performance there from Murataya to get the victory and to become the IBF interim champion. We had two scores of 119-109, one score of 118-110, nearly a shutout victory there for Ray Murataya. So now he is the IBF interim belt. He was looking to say that he could eventually face Vasyl Lomachenko for that full IBF belt. But like I said, man, like Vasyl Lomachenko versus Ray Murataya, I ain't really seeing that. Raymond Murataya versus potentially Keyshawn Davis. Now, that is a fight that I've been asking for since both of those fighters have been coming up as contenders there in the lightweight division. But Top Rank had a plan for both of those fighters, and it's pretty much going according to plan so far. So with Murataya getting this win, now as the IBF interim champion, we'll see here. I say within the next few months, there for Vasyl Lomachenko to kind of like make his, final decision if he's going to continue his career or if it's a wrap for him. You know what I mean? So, there, like I said, I feel like he's going to end up retiring because if it's not a big fight for Vasyl Lomachenko next, might as well not even bother. I mean, so with that being said, for Ray Murataya, I would say he weed out to June 7th. You're going to have Keyshawn Davis versus Edwin De Los Santos at Scope Arena in Norfolk. So I don't know. Maybe he could be in attendance. You know what I mean, and see what goes on over there. If Keyshawn goes ahead and handles business as the businessman, then Top Rank got something right there with these two young fighters. So we'll see how that goes. Also, there on the card, you had the joint there with Andres Cortez staying undefeated. Giovanni Santillan, back in the mix there in the welterweight division, getting a decision win over Angel Beltran Villa. You had like another few fights that were on the card. Looks like all the A-side fighters basically went on that Top Rank card. It was basically kind of like headlined by the main event there, Navarrete versus Charly Suarez, where like I said, Charly Suarez just got a bad break on that front. So that was it on that side, and then of course there you had the Probox card where Erickson Lubin went on ahead and had his bout over in his hometown of Kissimmee, Florida, against Adrian Holmes Jr. I was talking about the thing there with Probox, man. I could have got credentials there for Probox if I would have known that I could have got credentials for Probox. So I don't know. I'll hit him up. We'll get a few things set, straight and sorted out, because I didn't know at the time how to apply for credentials until I felt like it was too late. But apparently it wasn't. Oh well, it is what it is. But of course, Erickson Lubin, world title contender there at 154 pounds, trying to get himself back in the mix. Since his loss to Sebastian Fundora in 2022, had his win over Jesus Ramos Jr. in September of 2023, right? And the following year, I'm like, okay, he got this big win over Jesus Ramos, gave Jesus Ramos his first professional loss, and then couldn't necessarily get in line for a fight. So I'm like, yo, what's going on? What's the deal? But I guess there are a few things, off and on going on. He also had an injury of sorts, because I knew there was news of him potentially fighting Tim Tszyu before the end of last year, but he had an injury and then said, "Hey, we probably could fight if you're ready later on." But Tim Tszyu didn't necessarily go for that. So I mean, it is what it was on that instance there. You know what I mean? So now you have him back in the ring after an extended layoff here against Adrian Holmes Jr. Had an undefeated record, was taller, had a longer reach, but they've been in the mix as amateurs, and this was just a whole. This was when they talk about levels. This was levels, man. This was definitely levels, because Adrian Holmes looked like he did not belong in the ring one bit against Erickson Lubin. Yeah, I ain't really see much of nothing from him. And the Probox announcing crew, after the fight, they're like, I mean, dang there, Adrian Holmes, you gonna give any type of effort? Did you even pinch the dude? Yeah, I mean that's what it kind of looked like, because you didn't really see that much urgency out of Adrian Holmes, particularly in that first half of the fight. You know what I mean? I didn't see much of urgency. I didn't see many emphasis in his punches. He was punching off of the back foot for the majority of the fight. He didn't stand his ground. It didn't look like there against Erickson Lubin, and Erickson Lubin just proceeded to try to break him down and then pick him apart there until the ninth and 10th round, where it just seemed like it was overwhelming there for Adrian Holmes. And then he just got supremely tired. It looked like he was supremely gassed there around the ninth and 10th round. And so after that, Erickson Lubin just turned on the pressure and then was able to knock down Adrian Holmes Jr., right? And then after that, just continue to throw combinations and all that type of stuff until Chris Young just stepped in and said, "Hey, all right, that's enough. That's it. It's a wrap. You done." And Erickson Lubin gets the win there, and it puts him right back in the mix. They're in the 154-pound division. This was an IBF eliminator. These were, two highly rated guys here in the IBF rankings. There with Erickson Lubin ranked at number 3, and Adrian Holmes ranked at number 6. So coming out of this weekend, if they haven't done so already, the IBF will have their new rankings. But real quick, wanted to get one of our great panelists here on for this particular edition of the Boxing Source podcast. Of course, it's my guy checking in. The Boxing Academic is in the building, man. What's going on, Boxing Academic?
Never much. How you doing, JR?
Doing all good, man. Doing all good. Just trying to catch up with all the action that happened yesterday. Had the thing there on Probox, man. Over in Kissimmee, Florida. Erickson Lubin, doing this thing, getting a win. Now, pretty much right back in the mix, and says, "Hey, I mean, I want to." You get who is it? The champion there has to say, "Hey, what's up?" You know what I mean? Murtazalia, well, what's good? I'm here. Let's get something happening. What did you think about it?
Definitely. Yeah, I saw the fight. I joined in once you start making your comments on Holmes where you were like essentially was he, could he have given a bit more? And so my assessment of the fight was, how some people they've always had the perspective of a sparring partner. And I am not saying anything to be disrespectful to anyone. Let me first say that. Because I give a lot of credit to everyone who goes out there and puts their heart on the line, and like we sit on the sideline eating popcorn, judging people. But the fact that we are around the sport and we've been doing this for a number of years, that's our right to be critical. So I'm saying this from an objectively critical space. I ain't saying it to be mean or nothing like that.
Mm-hmm.
So some people have the perspective of a sparring partner. And so essentially, as a sparring partner, you come to someone else's gym. When you come to someone else's gym, the accommodations that are given to you are sort of probably given to you by that head fighter, if they do give you any accommodations. And essentially everything you're doing is catering to the top fighter to essentially get them ready. Mm-hmm. And so even when you take into like sparring, and I'm gonna throw in women's boxing when I do this. So I've seen a number of videos where you have women and they fighting either a young dude, a young champion or something like that. Well, let me not call him a champion, an up and coming young fighter, and or you got world class women who are fighting professional guys, which may be lower level professional guys. When them guys come into that sparring part, when they come in as sparring partners, they're there knowing that they got to get this person good work, meaning if they can't beat the person up, otherwise they won't get called back. They got to give them, enough work to where they will get called back, but they can't give them too much work, because if you give them too much work, then you won't get called back. And if you, like, let's say with Clarissa Shields, if you punch her too hard or something, or you throw a left hook and you forget where you at, then it's just like now you got a controversy on your hands. So it's a certain mindset as a sparring partner that you sort of are always accommodating to the person that you fight against. And essentially you are just there to sort of just make it to the 4 rounds or 5 rounds or however long you in there.
Mm-hmm.
And you just got to make sure that you get over that hump and get them good work, whatever good work may be. And so to me, I don't know if I saw what I think I saw was the mentality of a sparring partner, in that, you give somebody good work, but to be a champion, you got to give a bit more. And so there are different champions. There are champions who use their body to separate them from other people, a la Ruslan Provodnikov. He uses his body and gets in the fire in the line of shots to be able to give you shots. You got other types where they have spectacular endurance as compared to their competitors, a la Usyk, Alexander Usyk. So compared to all the other heavyweights, he got the best win. So he's able to use that thing to get him past everybody else, even though people are like 2 or 3 feet taller than him. I'm exaggerating, but you get what I'm saying. Yeah. Even though he's fighting the super heavyweights. Mm-hmm. So just simply saying, the guy to me had a sparring partner mentality, and the thing that sort of separates a champion, which is that intangible. I don't think he, from just my perspective of watching him, maybe that time and another time, he may not have had to dig and do that. What was his record, out of curiosity?
17-0.
Okay. And looking at his record, what type of quality? Because I remember seeing him fight one other time, because I think he's from Atlanta, right?
Well,
he fight out of Atlanta.
No, he's from Michigan. And
I'm tripping.
He's a Salida Promotions fighter, and he's been featured in a number of Salida Promotions events. What he does over there with Big Time Boxing USA, there in the Flint, Detroit area. So he's kind of like built this record up, as far as like, and going up the ranks with the number of wins, being part of that Big Time Boxing USA event circuit there, right? And then he, gets this particular point where, okay, if I get this win, I'm right in the mix to, fight for a world title. And so if you know that this is right in front of you, then why would you kind of like be in the ring and, as you may have mentioned, like being there as like a sparring partner? But going from what Paulo Malignaggi was saying after the fight, I don't even think it was like a sparring partner, because it didn't even look like he was, trying to do things to show potential weaknesses from Erickson Lubin or anything that Erickson Lubin had to adjust to. So I was like, okay, if you're in this position where you could potentially be right there to fight for a world title, you got to give much more of an effort than that. And I don't think he really gave that much of an effort over the course of 10 plus rounds there to give Erickson Lubin any type of trouble. You know what I mean? Even though Erickson Lubin is has had that extensive background there as an amateur, then started off as a pro instead of going off to the Olympics, and was successful up to the point where he fought Jamel Charlo. But like, it's a different class. Like I was saying, it's levels. Like, you got to be able to get to that next level. And if you wanted to get to that next level, you would have to beat or at least compete with someone like an Erickson Lubin. Now, seeing this fight and seeing what Arjo Holmes is doing in this particular fight, I don't feel like he's going to be in the mix for any type of key fight in the division anytime soon. He's going to be right back at it with, just being honest, he'll be right back at it with Salida Promotions cards that they have over there in Michigan, and continue to have those fights.
Yeah, and the crazy thing, well, let me not jump ahead of myself here, but you could tell he had some skill. Like, you could tell, like, he was athletic. Like, you could tell he played another sport. Like, just off of me watching him, you could tell he played another sport. He got a good build. You know what I'm saying? Like, things are there, but it's other things that you need to separate you to be a champion. And like, even another thing that I mentioned with Ruslan Provodnikov is his will. And I'm not sure if that's what I saw yesterday while watching him fight, or even the other times. And my apologies, I mixed him up with the guy who fought earlier, who was from Atlanta. I saw him a few times. I gotta remember his name, but he pretty athletic, but he fought out of Atlanta.
Oh, gotcha. But yeah, I mean,
Najee.
Oh yeah, no, Najee Lopez. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll talk about him and his performance there. But yeah, Holmes just just like I said, I felt like that was like really disappointing, because you would think that being as highly rated as he was there in the IBF rankings, given that it was an IBF eliminator, that he would kind of like say, okay, I'm gonna really compete with Erickson Lubin. Given what they had in reference to their initial press conference or workout or whatever it is, they went back and forth. They nearly went to blows and all that type of stuff. I thought I would have seen much more of an effort there from Arjo Holmes, but didn't get that at all there. And so now you got Erickson Lubin there with the stoppage victory. Like I said, back in the mix here in the IBF rankings there, pretty much next in line for that world title shot against Bakr Murtazaliev. So for Murtazaliev, it's like, okay, now you got a little bit of a waiting game to see, like, if you're gonna wait for when Erickson Lubin is ready for that fight, when you could have had like some type of defense against maybe a Charles Conwell, but you said that Charles Conwell ain't a big enough name. You were thinking that maybe you could get something in with like a Keith Thurman, but Keith Thurman ain't looking for that fight here right now. No, he's not. So now it's like, okay, what am I gonna do here next? Am I gonna have like a voluntary defense and then wait to have this mandatory challenge thing, or mandatory defense against Erickson Lubin? I mean, it's up to Murtazaliev, but his demeanor towards like certain fighters or not fighting certain guys, like putting them on the shelf. Now I don't know if that's going to work here with Erickson Lubin, but we'll see. So that's mainly what I have from that main event. I was talking about it there with Najee Lopez. He had like an easy night there against Juan Guerrero Osuna. Second round stoppage there, so he's 14-0. He's like one of those impressive guys to watch out for in the light heavyweight division there at 175 pounds. Definitely a good performance by him. Nicholas Flores got a TKO victory. There, like, really showed out against Alan Sanchez. If I'm not mistaken, he was supposed to fight. Who is it? What was it? Gabriel Maestre. He was supposed to fight Gabriel Maestre, if I'm not mistaken. There at 147 pounds, it was supposed to be out there in Philadelphia, but it couldn't necessarily happen due to an injury. So now he just turned around and got right back here in this one. And a lot of people are talking about Nicholas Flores there at 147 pounds. He's rated as high as number 7 in the IBF, number 9 in the WBA and the WBO. And they were boosting him up there on Probox, saying that maybe he'd be a really serious contender out there in the welterweight division, given what he's been doing so far. So that's another fighter to look out for. And Darrell Val-Saint has also been another fighter that has been on the Probox circuit that's been very impressive. That had his stoppage win over Rodolfo Orozco there at 154 pounds. So good showing by those 4 fighters that are featured by Probox TV there as the A side there. So Boxing Academic, you were going to talk about Najee Lopez and probably those other fighters.
Yeah, definitely. I would say both guys were a class above their opponents. I've seen Najee a few times, and I'm not sure if I went to one of his cards in Atlanta. I don't remember, or maybe I just saw him on TV a few times. But I definitely will look out for him if he does have anything else in Atlanta. But yeah, it's good to see people out of Atlanta. He's definitely athletic. You could tell he also play another sport, and probably was one of the people who could do backflips if he was a cornerback or something. So yeah, he's pretty athletic. And then Flowers, which was the Cuban dude or something, right? What was he?
Oh, Nicholas Flores. No, he's like what, from Puerto Rico, ain't he?
Puerto Rican. Yeah, my bad. Puerto Rican. Yeah, now that's one slick guy, man.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that dude, he will be a problem, but a problem that I do potentially see, which he probably will correct this when he raises up his level. But I do see that, what's my guy name who always get knocked out when he be doing all that slick stuff, and he done got knocked out for the last 3 times? Tevin Farmer.
Tevin Farmer. Nah, he get knocked out. He could have won that fight that he had against William Zepeda last year.
He got knocked out a couple times though. Or stopped. How about that? Stopped. He got stopped a couple times. And so that's neither here nor there. The point I'm making is he reminds me sort of him in the slickness, you know what I'm saying? Like, in the way that he does things. And the part that reminds me of him exactly is that he'll make a move, he'll do something slick, but then when he getting out, he'll get out with his hands low. And I know people do that because it's easier to sort of dodge a punch a la Roy Jones Jr., with your hands down, and you can move your, do your waist moving and move your head or whatever. But I could see an issue in the future if he does that, and he'll punch or corner or counter or something, then he'll make a move and try to be slick and get out of the way, and then somebody will feint him or something, they just whack his ass. Kind of like how they do Tevin Farmer. That's the only thing I'm saying, is that he just gotta make sure he is mindful of when he make the moves versus when he need to go out with his hands up. But that's the only thing.
Yeah, that's something there that he's gonna have to basically watch out for on that certain instance. But he's definitely been going up in the rankings and all that type of stuff there for the welterweight division. And as I mentioned there, if he would have, had that, if he would have had that opportunity there against Gabriel Maestre, that would have put him right, definitely in the mix there in the welterweight rankings. There, as Gabriel Maestre, had a couple of highly rated fights there at welterweight. I think he had the one against Emmanuel Stanionis, right? So he had that loss, but then was going to get right back in the mix. So he's still one of those competitors or top level competitors there in the welterweight division. And Nicholas Flores would have been able to have the fight there against him and get a win. Then that would have definitely had him out there as a serious contender at welterweight. We've had fights against Jihad Tucker. They're from Top Rank. Also Lucas Santa Maria. I was able to see Nicholas Flores there against Santa Maria, where we stopped them last March. So I've seen him have these impressive performances here recently. So definitely want to see what's going to be next for him. I don't know if they're gonna try to rehash the fight there with Gabriel Maestre, but they really have something where he could be in a good spot here within the division there welterweight. I'll have to talk with his promoter there, Samson Lukowitz, to see what he says about Nicholas Flores and what direction he has there in the future for him in the welterweight division. So that's definitely good there. And Najee Lopez has had like a number of those fights there under the Probox circuit. Just gonna see if they're gonna continue to build him up there. Before he gets a pretty interesting fight at 175 pounds. The beat's gonna stay at 175. But yeah, he just dusted Juan Gerardo Osuna in that fight. And Darrell Valsaint, had a little bit of issues here and there, was getting hit with a few jabs there from Orozco, but then got more comfortable being out there in the ring and kind of like stepped it up, but Orozco just couldn't really keep up with him. So Valsaint is another one there from the Probox circuit that's gonna build up his record out there too. While being under Probox before he gets that opportunity. As we know, a number of these fighters that have been on Probox have gotten in position to fight for it, and some of them were able to win a world title. So, shout out to Probox there. Been able to get these fighters in good positions and have those good fights, and shout out to the matchmaking there, because that's what gets them ready for these high level fights that they have outside the Probox circuit. There. Some may say like the fight of the night could have been that super bantamweight fight between Navarrete Romero and Mayeli Rosquero for the WBA super bantamweight title, where Rosquero, got the split decision win there. Man, they had like a whole bunch of punches, throwing a whole bunch of punches and landed a whole bunch of punches on that fight. Man, I was surprised that the Probox announcers didn't make no jokes about the whole thing that was happening last weekend and compared it to this. So, but shout out to those two. They really went at it on that one. That was probably the fight of the night there. So, so that's what I had there in reference to Probox, man. That kind of like covers mostly what we had over the course of the weekend. Wanted to get your thoughts on the thing there with Navarrete and Suarez. If you're able to see that, after the whole mix there with the Probox, if you're able to catch that.
Unfortunately, I didn't catch it. I was watching the movie. Yes, but I saw the highlights and I saw Navarrete get like knocked down right or something.
Oh, he got hit with a punch and it had caused a cut. But with Suarez, after he threw the punch, like he went in close, and then they said that it was like a head clash. So they felt like the cut was caused by a head clash, but replays showed, like detailed replays showed, that it was really a punch there from Suarez that caused it.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. So instead of it being like a technical knockout for Suarez, it ended up going to the cards, and it ended up being a win for Navarrete. But now they looking at it and they're seeing about changing the result to a no contest. But still a tough break for Charly Suarez, man. He should be the WBO super featherweight champion. That's the thing on that, man.
Can they really do that though?
What, as far as like turning the result to like a win?
to a no contest.
Oh yeah. They could do that. They could do that in California. They could do that.
Okay.
But like as far as like changing it to a win for Charly Suarez, yeah, I don't see that happening. No. I don't see it happening. So, like I said, tough break for Suarez. He'll end up getting a rematch probably in seven months or so as Navarrete heals from a cut. But still, I mean, it would be a whole different thing if it was Charly Suarez as the WBO super featherweight champion. You know what I mean? Says like any boxing news and matchups you can announce. Not necessarily. I mean, the only thing I said was earlier that June 7th, you got a Probox card that's in San Antonio. There, you're gonna have Justin Paulo headlining that, and Justin Paulo, will be facing Juan Carlos Burgos. There on that card in San Antonio, Texas. But that's part of a whole weekend of fights on June 7th. You're gonna have a Probox card June 7th. You're gonna have the top ranked card, as I mentioned there, with Keyshawn Davis versus Edwin De Los Santos. You're also gonna have an MVP promotions card on June 7th over at the Caribe Royale Resort in Orlando, and that still doesn't include the June 6th card that will be a Salida Promotions card at Turning Stone Resort Casino in Verona, New York, part of the International Boxing Hall of Fame weekend. And that still doesn't include what was it? Danny Garcia's event that's going to be happening in Philadelphia. So there's a whole bunch of fight cards all on that weekend, the first weekend of June. So that's crazy there. You said Hamza Shiraz there is going to be up against Edgar Berlanga. That is supposed to be officially announced here in a bit. They're going to have a press conference coming up. Supposed to be May 15th. There is Edgar Berlanga versus Hamza Shiraz, and then Shakur Stevenson versus William Zepeda. That's supposed to be, I guess they're going to announce that it's going to take place on July 12th in New York City at a to-be announced venue. That's what they're saying there in the press release, right? Some people are rumoring that it's going to be in Central Park, but it's going to be July 12th, which is crazy because July 11th at Madison Square Garden, that's going to be that third fight between Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano, that all-female card that's going to be on Netflix. So that whole weekend over in New York City is going to be insane. It's going to be absolutely insane. And I mentioned it before, and I mentioned it again. Them hotel prices, you can forget about it. You might as well try to hope that you could get an Airbnb out there in New York City because them hotel prices for that weekend, they're absolutely stupid. All right. So yeah, there you go. Yeah. So it's going to be Hamza Shiraz versus Edgar Berlanga there, and I guess that's going to end up being the headlining bout for that fight card because that is the one that got top billing here or whatever, but Shakur Stevenson is, the world champion going up against William Zepeda. You would think that is, there says no more silly venues like Times Square, Alcatraz. Well, I mean, hey, what about Central Park? Like, how they gonna pull this off in Central Park? What are they gonna do there? Are they gonna do a like a makeshift arena like how they do in what was it in it wasn't Riyadh, but remember the thing with the rematch between Anthony Joshua and Andy Ruiz? They built the stadium. They built the stadium from scratch for them to have that fight, right? So I don't know if they're gonna try to do this here for Central Park, but yeah, it's gonna be crazy. But also, you're gonna have David Morrell Jr. against what is it, Amon Katif or something like that. That's also gonna be on that card there in the 175-pound division. I gotta see here if he's there in the rankings or whatnot. Yeah, I probably got that name completely wrong. Therefore, David Morrell's opponent is Imam Katayev. There, he is ranked number 6 in the IBF right now. Imam Katayev, and of course David Morrell Jr. that had his first loss to David Benavidez, but his first fight back against Imam Katayev there. That's going to be a good scrap. Good scrap there at the 175-pound division. And also, it's supposed to be the WBC welterweight champion. Not the welterweight champion, but the WBC super lightweight champion, or light welterweight, whatever they want to call it. Alberto Puello there will be going up against the former IBF champion, 140 pounds, Subio Matias. So that is the proposed fight card for July 12th. So that tells you that it's going to be an absolutely insane weekend there for New York City. And also with that July 11th card headlined by Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano, is going to be 3 more fights included in that fight card that's going to be announced here within a couple of weeks. And one of them will potentially have another world title belt on there. So that's something here to watch out for, because we might have something in reference to that on the Boxing Source YouTube channel. So be on the lookout for that. I mean, we already have, 4 world title bouts on that card for Madison Square Garden, July 11th. And then we're looking like we could have another world title bout on there as well. So that's what we got. So that, pretty much covers it. We'll try to get this thing in within 2 hours. Like I said, big ups to my guy there, Adrian Clark, of course, CEO of Fighters First Management there. And definitely has been doing this work here, being a former agent and now being a boxing manager, and definitely has been doing this thing as a boxing manager. Shout out to my guy here, the Boxing Academic, as always, for being part of the show. Like I said, this is like the second episode after going through 10 years of the Boxing Source, whether it was a Boxing Source radio show or the Boxing Source podcast. And the Boxing Academic has pretty much been like one of them day ones. You know what I mean? So we've definitely been here doing the work and stuff like that to talk about the sport of boxing. So we'll get back in the mix here for the midweek report, scheduled for Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. May have a special guest on for that, and also could have something for Tuesday. So it has something could be for Tuesday, Wednesday, and then see about getting out to the press conference Thursday for that July 11th thing. So we got a lot here that we're going to be doing here on the Boxing Source. Also, check out the boxingsource.net. We kind of updated the pound for pound rankings and did a little bit of an expansion of the pound for pound rankings there as well. And also, I will see about adding another page to the website to kind of like keep people on schedule with what's going on, because as I mentioned, it's going to be a whole lot of more fight cards coming up here over the summer months. So y'all got to be able to see if you can keep up with that here. And we're going to try our best to do that. But once again, thanks for listening live. Also, thanks to those that will be listening on the replay here through Spotify or whatever podcast app you use. And with that being said, I'll catch y'all later, y'all. Peace out.